Are you our speaker today?
I am.
Okay. So I kind of assumed that, but I wanted to make sure. Okay, are we ready, everyone?
We're getting ready. Yep.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO, Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and we are thrilled that you're joining us today. I think we're in for a really interesting topic, and it's going to be interesting because I don't think you guys think it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be. So we're so glad you could join us. If you're on Zoom with us, you can ask speaker questions during the presentation. If you're on Facebook Live, are we Facebook Living this morning? If you're on Facebook Live, type in your question to Tiffany and she'll repeat it to the speaker. So Bureau of Workers' Compensation, something that I am amazed that most businesses know very little about. They don't realize the value that they can have to a business. They don't realize the partner that they can be to a business. And I don't want to get too off track, but Kathleen, you may get some questions about the whole code enforcement thing for COVID-19, but that's not really what our presentation is about today. So there is, Bureau of Workers' Comp has been releasing dividends. This is the second major release to businesses, which puts cash directly in the pocket of our local businesses and positively impacts their bottom line. So you know who I am. We're going to do some self-introductions in a minute here. And then Kathleen, we're going to get to you in just a minute. So Laura, are you doing self-introductions?
Yep, I will do introductions today. Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Merrill. If I haven't met you before, glad to have you on here with us today. I'll just go around my screen. So Janet, we will start with you. Tell us who you are and what company you're with.
Good morning. I am Janet High. I am the Regional Sites Manager for Region 5 for Indiana Wesleyan University's National and Global Education Centers. So I manage the Westchester and the Dayton facilities.
Great. Glad to have you with us today. Nancy?
I'm Nancy O'Neill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
And Jared, even though it says you're Jamie, we know you're not.
I'm not Jamie. I'm Jared Dennison from Ohio Credit Union.
All right. And Clinton, welcome. Glad to see you here today.
Hi. Yep, thank you. Clinton Griffith, I'm the owner of U.S. Health Advisors here in Hamilton, Cincinnati area.
Wonderful. And Ann?
Hi, good morning. My name's Ann Arnett, and I'm with Gateway Springs Health Campus. We are assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing care right over next to Bethesda Butler.
Great. Glad to have you with us today. Tiffany?
I'm Tiffany Grubb with the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right. Glad to have everybody here today. We're excited to hear from Kathleen. So Kathleen, we will let you take it away.
Great. So let me share my screen. Whoop. It says host disabled participant from sharing.
Oh.
Are you able to?
Tiff will get that together for you here in just a second.
Sure.
You should be good.
Okay.
Kathleen.
All right. Let's see here. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Can you see it now? Oh, hold on.
There we go.
All right. Great. So again, my name is Kathleen Davenport. I'm a regional business consultant for the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. And so thank you for having me today. I reached out to Dan last week to share some great news, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But Dan invited me to come and share it with you, and I think it's very timely. As the Southwest Regional Business Consultant, I work with different associations and chambers, and I'm kind of the liaison between you and the BWC. And my contact information is there. So you as an individual employer or the chamber, feel free at any time to reach out to me. If you have direct questions on your business, I'm happy to help. That's kind of my role with BWC. So I'm always happy to help employers out or answer questions or point them in the right direction if I'm not the person to help you. So you'll see this information here again at the end. I can get my slides to advance now, so hold on. Technical difficulties. All right. So some of the things that I thought we would cover today is the third 2020 dividend. We'll talk about that in detail. We're in the process of sending out face masks to individual employers. We did this in the summer and we're about to do it again. We've had a lot of questions from employers about our COVID response. I think every business is developing their own COVID response and it's affecting everybody a little bit differently. One of the questions I get from a lot of employers is work from home considerations as it ties back to compensation. So we will be talking about that as well. And we have a lot of resources available to you guys through our Division of Safety and Hygiene. So I'll give you all that information as well. And then we'll have questions at the end. So many of you might have heard that we're in the process of giving our third dividend this year, 2020 dividend. We've given dividends in the past. And if you think about how BWC is funded, maybe you're not as familiar with how BWC is funded, but we're funded solely out of employer premiums. So we don't get any other money besides employer premiums. We have an actuarial department each year that looks at everybody's manual classification, which identifies, what type of business you're in, and payroll and claims, and develops rates for us. In any individual rating year, we have to collect enough in premium to pay out claims costs for the life of that claim. And claims costs can have a very short tail, which most of them do. Maybe it's a simple trip to the emergency room or urgent care, maybe some stitches and they're back to normal. That's how about 86% of our claims occur. But sometimes there's a long tail. We have claims from the 1950s that we are still working on. Some of those injured workers were permanently and totally disabled from 1950 and haven't been able to rejoin the workforce. And there's also some employers that unfortunately pass away or have death claims as a result of their workplace injuries. And so their dependents, spouse or dependent children are entitled to benefits, for the life of their life as well. So there is can be a very long tail in a claim. Most claims, again, are medical only, and those are resolved very quickly. But in any given year, in 2020, we have to collect enough in premiums through our rates to be able to pay out claims that occur this year, no matter how long their tail is. So, each year we collect money and we have an investment strategy, obviously, like most insurance companies. We're a state agency, although we operate in many ways like an insurance company because we are an insurance company. And so in 2020, we collect enough premium through rates to be able to pay out those tails. So they're invested in various different investment portfolios, and we're governed by our board of directors, that an investment committee that determines that portfolio. So we have had a very good return on our investments, but besides that, in recent years, our claims are diminished, and this is well before COVID. I think we're expecting claims because of COVID, because people are not, a lot of people are working from home and are not exposed necessarily to the normal hazards of their jobs. Some industries are, some industries aren't. So we collect premium. If that money, if we have a surplus, that goes back to you guys as the employers that are paying into it. Back up just a minute too. I think part of that is the investment. A big part of that is the investment that we get a return on. But since we've had fewer claims, that's going into consideration as well. Back in 2010, we had over 200,000 claims filed each year with BWC and allowed claims. And this past year, we've had like 84,000. So it's dropped dramatically in the last 10 years in the number of claims filed. A big reason to that goes back to the employers who are doing things they think safer think safety is a priority for a lot of employers. And in addition to having fewer claims, I think employers and BWC are doing a much better job at managing those claims. They're looking at things like transitional work to get people back to work quicker, to help keep them in the mindset of work. And so I think we're doing a much better job as an agency, and employers are doing a much better job with having fewer accidents and being willing to take individuals back when they're not 100% to kind of prevent some of those long-lasting conditions that can be added to claims. So with all of that, you know, we've had too much money and we've been able to give them back then through dividends. And I'll show you here in a few minutes what the history has been. But this recent dividend that we announced about 2 weeks ago will be mailed in mid-December. So we hope to get all the checks out early mid-December. So you have all of that money back into your hands by the end of the year so you can close out your books. This dividend is a little bit different because it's 372.4% of the premium, the net premium that an employer paid for 2019. So for public employers, they're on calendar year 2019. Private employers, their policy runs July through June. So the premium that was for the period of July 1st, 2019, 6/30 of 2020. That net premium, there might have been some rebates that you already received back with that. If you paid us early, you get a early payment rebate back. A Go Green, if you do everything online, you can get a Go Green. So we net that out. That's why we say net premium, and then give you the difference. So an example is if an employer paid us $1,000 in premium, if that was their net premium for 2019, then you take that times 3.7246. So you get back $3,724.60. So that's a huge number. So you'll be getting that back again. And I would plan mid-December, early mid-December, and we want to get those checks back out to you before year's end. So our board just approved that 2 weeks ago. And if there's any outstanding balance, if you have an installment due or something that's posted to your account, we'll take that out. So we're not crossing money back and forth. So that's netted out or applied to the unpaid balances as well. So like in my example, if you were getting a check back for $37.24 and you had a bill with us for $1,000 that for an installment that's due for this year, we would take that out and pay the difference. So that's great news. I kind of feel like I should be showing up with big checks and balloons on the doorsteps of employers. You know, what we wanted to do with this dividend is we had the surplus, and we know employers are struggling with this COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, we've had our own challenges too, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in a few minutes. But, you know, employers need this money right now, and we didn't want to hold on to it knowing that maybe next year this would be something that we would offer again. So we wanted to get that back into the hands of the employers. So keep your eye out on the mail. With the mail, it should be coming out here in a couple of weeks. So that's really, really great news. I mean, I think a lot of employers need this lifeline to you know, help them survive, and you know, especially with the spike in cases that we're all seeing. We really want to be able to provide this, and hopefully it's very timely. I talked about how we've given back 2 other dividends. One just last month. So last month you should have received another check from us. The first one this year went out actually in April. And one slide real quick. I put in there how much we plan on sending as part of this third dividend back to Butler County employers. It's $124 million back to Butler County employers. So I think that was important. I'm sorry I skipped over that, but that's a lot of money just coming back to Butler County in addition to the $5 billion throughout the year. So as I mentioned, we had other dividends this year. The first one came out in April. That was a little bit earlier than we had planned on releasing dividends, but you know, if you remember what was happening back in April, the pandemic was starting, and a lot of employers were shut down and restaurants were closed, and this was one way to, again, try to jumpstart, earlier than we had initially planned. But back in April, that dividend was 1.4 billion that went back. I just mentioned 5 billion. So this one that's coming in December is significantly bigger than these first two. The April dividend was based on your 2018 premium. Again, for public employers, that's calendar year 18. For private employers, which most of you are, that premium was from 7/1 of 18 to 6/30 of 19, 100% of that premium. And then in October, we announced a second dividend for the year, and that was 1.34 billion. That was 100% of the 2019 premium. And then this December again is 5 billion, and it's 327% of the 19 premium. So in essence, between the October and the December dividend that you'll be receiving, you'll receive 427% back of that 2019 premium, because it's based on the same premium year.
Kathleen, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So this is for any business who has paid into workers' comp.
Yeah, so any business that pays premium, there are some individuals that just pays $120 and for a certificate, and that is a waiver of coverage. But any employer that had paid premium to BWC, the snapshot date was October 2nd. So we took a snapshot on October 2nd to make sure that individual employer was compliant with us, that they didn't have any excessive lapses. Back in the spring, we were deferring payments, allowing employers to defer payments. And we did a lot of work with employers before the October 2nd deadline, where if there was an employer that needed to get caught up, that outside of the deferral, meaning being lapsed prior to the whole pandemic, we tried to work hard with them so they would be entitled to that first dividend. So if an employer was entitled to the first dividend, the snapshot is the same. They'll be entitled to, if the employer was entitled to the second dividend, which was October, the end of October, then they would be entitled to the December. So the majority of employers, self-insured employers, are not entitled to it because they don't pay premium into the state insurance fund. But almost every employer probably on this call would be entitled, unless you happen to be self-insured.
Kathleen, I just want to state, so basically, so people really get this. So they basically got everything refunded from 2018 premium.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have more than 4.5 times their investment, in the following year. So, and I mean, in the past year. So you're basically the best deal in town.
We are. In fact, we've worked with some employers that in the past were thinking about self-insurance, and right now, this, just from a dollars and cents, we've given back nearly $8 billion in the last year. Self-insured employers wouldn't be entitled to that, like I said, because they're paying their claims as they go. They don't pay into the state insurance fund, so they're set up differently. It really is. We have been very good in the past 10 years specifically, not decrease claims costs, but other things as well, and reducing our rates. And when you think about from a Chamber of Commerce and business development and bringing employers to Ohio and into this region, workers' compensation is one of many things that employers look at from economic development. How much does it going to cost me to operate my business in Ohio? And part of my job is working with any potential new employer and help them make those estimates and look at different programs that are available to BWC. When we look nationally at where we rank as far as our base rates or our average rates, we're waiting on the 2020 study. Oregon does the study every 2 years, and 2018, it ranks the highest first, so you don't want to be the first, down to 51, includes District of Columbia. We are number 38. So, we are definitely in the better half. These last couple years, we've had significant rate decreases as well. So we're really looking forward to the published study that comes out in 2020 to see where we rank nationally. So our rates are very competitive as far as, other states, especially the surrounding states as well. And that's just the base rates. That's not including all the dividends that we've been returning to employers and the different programs that employers can get involved in on a yearly basis to help get rebates on their premiums. All right, so that's the good news about dividends. I wanted to touch on some other topics since I have the time. We did send out face coverings to every employer back in the summer, right after the pandemic started. We start working with different vendors to be able to provide face masks. We partner with Job and Family Services to get an employee count for every employer in Ohio. Use their employee count because we base our information on payroll, so we don't have good employee counts. So we worked with Job and Family Services, and the calculation that we developed was 5 face masks for every employee that an employer has. And they come in packages of 50, so you at least got 50 face masks. And we sent those out in July. We're doing a second round of face masks, and those will be shipped in December as well. So we're working specifically with the second round with only Ohio vendors to be able to provide those face masks. I have sent this information out to a number of the associations and chambers that I work with, and I've been getting a lot of questions or a lot of comments on our face masks, and people like them. They like the quality of them. They are cloth face masks, and they can be washed and reused. And so we'll be sending out that second round. So employers are not billed for these. They don't have to ask for them. As long as you're a state-funded employer and have a policy with us, you'll get those face masks. They come out to the physical address that we have on file. If you want to check that information, if have questions about that, you can direct those to me as well as if you're an individual employer about how many face masks you received in the past, or again, you'll receive the same amount for the second round, and making sure we get to the physical address. So some of the projects we've been working on is we've had some return to us because of bad addresses and different things. So trying to make sure, a lot of people are working from home. So sometimes when we send it to the physical address, they're not able to be received. So we've had several projects working on the face mask initiatives, but that's something, again, face masks are what we know, what the experts are saying is decreasing the spread of the virus, and to be able to provide those. If an individual employer cannot use them or does not want them, then we ask that you donate them to schools or nursing homes. There are plenty of people that would accept them, that can use them. In fact, I've had several calls and emails about our face masks if we were getting another set or where we got them from and things along those lines. So if this is something you can't use, we suggest that you donate them, and you'll get a little card inside the package that will tell you that as well. So we'll be distributing that second round again in December. So December is going to be a very, very busy month for us. So as far as a COVID response, there's many things that we've done in response to that. I talked about the 3 different policyholder dividends. The other things we're doing from a claims perspective is that we are allowing telemedicine visits. That's something that with workers' compensation in the past has been very difficult because the doctor really needs to see that particular injury to make an appropriate assessment. But with everything happening and the changes in the world of medicine and televisits, just made sense, especially initially when doctors' offices were closed. So they do want them to be the video, audio. We won't pay for a strict telephone consultation, but the traditional telemedicine visit where it's connected to both video and audio, we're allowing those. From a reporting standpoint of payroll, shifting gears a little bit, the emergency sick leave and expanded FMLA as part of the CARES Act is not reportable to BWC. Traditional sick leave is, but if it's the emergency sick leave and expanded FMLA, that doesn't have to be reported to BWC as payroll. So you would exclude that in reporting the payroll when you do that on an annual basis. And idle from home pay, if the operation was shut down, we saw this especially more in the spring where the operation was shut down, maybe in a manufacturing company, but the company continued to pay them, individual employees, to sit at home. That is also not reportable to BWC. And that kind of makes sense because if they're not at the shop, working, then, we don't have the exposure as far as the claims concerned. We moved all of our staff home. You can see my house here with my portrait in the background. That makes me look like I have a funky hairdo, but we are all working from home. It was a very heavy lift, like it was for most employers. We had here in Cincinnati, we have about 100 employees in our Cincinnati office, which is in Springdale, and we had to pack up. It was pretty easy transition for me. I have a laptop. I work in multiple offices to begin with, and out doing presentations. So it was easy for me to bring my laptop home and work from home. But our claim staff, they have desktop computers, multiple monitors. So in a matter of 2 weeks, back in March, everybody packed up and moved from home. We're still working from home until it's safe to return to the office. So we do plan on returning back to our office. Our IT department, like many IT departments, had a heavy lift back in the spring, but it's been working pretty well. We've updated some of our technology, so you're able to talk to our claims reps through their computer. So initially, early on, we were corresponding a lot with email, and now we have the full function of working with our individual employers and interworkers through telephone and of course still email and other means as well. One of our big changes, and we'll talk about some of their resources, is our safety and hygiene department, who are paid for out of your premium, but we have consultants that go out and work with employers, and typically they're out at work environments and making assessments and recommendations as part of what they do. So they're doing virtual consulting, and this took a little bit of time to get up and running, but they, I think most employers are working well with virtual consultations. So a lot of times they will use video to video a work process and be able to make recommendations based on that. So I think we've all moved to virtual consulting, and it was a little bit different for them, but they are doing very well at that as well. So we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But we do have on our website, there is a very detailed FAQ on our website. So this is our homepage of our website. And if you click on our FAQ, there's about 33 questions that employers have asked and we have put out there regarding this. We try to update this. I think the last update was the 14th of October, but prior to that, we were updating it sometimes twice a week or once a week as some of the answers to some of the questions has changed as everything kind of evolved with that. But so that's a great resource if you have questions on BWC. And then of course, you can always visit the Department of Health's website as well. Another big change, I didn't put it in here as far as administration is concerned. Our previous administrator, Stephanie McLeod, has now went with the Department of Health. So you might have seen that in the news. The governor announced that a couple weeks ago. She was a great leader for us. Obviously, she had a lot of things that she had to tackle with us and able to get these dividends out, and really valued her leadership, and Department of Health needs that at this time. So John Logue is our new interim administrator. He has been with us as part of our strategic direction. He was chief of strategic direction. He has 25 years of workers' comp experience, both private and public with us. And so I think it's a pretty seamless transition from Stephanie McLeod to John Logue. So we're excited that will be seamless, and I think we'll continue to do a lot of great things. So sometimes what I get from employers is about COVID-19 claims. Is COVID-19 something that's compensable under workers' compensation? So I just thought I would take some time to cover that here as well. COVID-19 claim typically is not, because it's a communicable disease, just like the flu. But individuals can be exposed in a variety of ways. You can be at the doctor's office and get exposed. You can be at the grocery store and get exposed. And a lot of times it's hard to pin back to employment. But there are some jobs that I think we would all agree that they have a greater degree in have getting COVID-19 than the general public. And healthcare and first responders are the ones that kind of come to the top of the list. There certainly are others too that we've allowed. So we could allow a claim for COVID-19. We do have a special team up in Columbus that handles those, because we're looking at things that are very specific to the law to make sure that it happened in the course of and arising out of employment, and a number of things related to that. We have, I think, about 1,200 claims that are allowed. We had several claims, especially early on, that were withdrawn. I think people thought that we were unemployment and not workers' compensation. So we had some job and family services claims that were filed that were ultimately withdrawn. We had some claims that were filed initially that were withdrawn because they had a negative COVID test. So they thought they had COVID and had a claim, but their test came back negative. We do pay for COVID test if it's related to a surgery. And then, or if you had an allowed COVID claim, but we just don't pay for anybody's COVID test. You know, there's other means out there to get that. I think it's pretty, at this point, readily available to anybody who wanted to get a COVID test. But there are some claims, like I said, about 1,200 of these claims that are out there. And we do take a very careful look at it to make sure it's something that should be handled within our system and not the healthcare system. So we have our law department, our policy department. We're looking at the medical, and we're looking for that causal relationship to employment. So we could allow the claim, but in the big scope of things, we don't have very many compared to how many positive cases that are out there. We still don't know what that tail might look like on some of these COVID claims, because some of them are more serious than others. Some of them are hospitalized. Some of them might have some more long-term benefits. When claims, just like any insurance company, can affect an employer's rates, there is some talk that maybe we would take COVID claims and exclude that from an employer's experience. We're evaluating that, trying to determine if that's something that we might consider in the future. But at this point, there's been no determination that might occur, but there is some talk about that. So I just thought I would mention it. Our board of directors is reviewing it. Thought I would also talk about some work from home injuries, where a lot of us are working from home, trying to stay safe. And there are some special things that you would consider when looking at work from home injuries. Certainly work from home injuries can happen. Before COVID, we had individuals that telecommuted as normal work practices. So we've had work from home injuries prior to COVID. Certainly we could have some now. What I hear from our claims department, we don't have rampant work from home injuries, but when we would look at it, we would look at it the same way we would look at any other claim. And I think the most important test that we would look at is here listed on my slide. Did the injury happen in the course of and arising out of employment? Did I get injured because I tripped and fell on my way out to the mailbox to get my mail? I mean, was that in the course of my employment? If that wasn't, then no, that claim would most likely be denied. Was I doing something for the benefit of the employer? And there are cases where that might be true. It might be maybe you're packaging stuff up at home, so you're able to ship it out. And if you cut yourself with a packing knife when you did that, you were doing something in benefit of your employer. So each claim is reviewed individually. What, from an employer standpoint, what we suggested you do is that you investigate those, give us as much detail as you can. We'll ask the injured worker for as much detail as they can so we can make those determinations. So it's important with any claim, and especially work from home claims, to be working with BWC, the Means Care Organization, that injured worker's doctor, to be able to make that determination accurately. So those are the two things that we look at, among other jurisdiction issues. But as far as the work from home that is most relevant, is the injury happened in the course of and rising out of employment. And in the course of employment is different than a rising out of employment. If I was here and I'm working and I had a stroke, I'm in the course of my employment when I had that stroke, but my stroke wasn't arising out of my employment. So, those are two separate measures that we use in the course of and rising out of employment. And then, what was the employee doing something of benefit for that employer? Other questions we've received recently, I've received recently is working outside of Ohio. Now that employers are considering work from home as more of a permanent option, there might be some situations where you might have employees that live outside of the state of Ohio. So then you have to determine who is responsible for that claim, or if you need coverage outside of Ohio. So, Ohio employers are covered if the employees are temporarily working out of state. So if your employee is temporarily working from home outside of the state of Ohio, then that and were injured, and it just might not be at home. It might be maybe they're a building inspector and they're now working from home, but they have to go to their building to inspect it. So you might have people that are traveling as part of that, but their main work is now from home, which is outside of Ohio. The one thing to consider is employees can file claims in any state. So we can't control that they'll file it in Ohio, but if it's filed outside of Ohio, you might have to deal with it outside of Ohio and kind of go with whatever the laws of what other states. Each state, we're monopolistic, we're one of four monopolistic, but every state has their own workers' compensation laws that govern what the private insurance companies do. So they make that determine. I know Kentucky, they want you to have insurance with Kentucky provider the minute you cross that river into Kentucky. So they don't recognize Ohio. Indiana is very more lenient. They don't define temporary, so they're okay with employees in Ohio going into Indiana working temporarily. So it's important to look at each state. If you have questions on that, I can help point you to resources. We have some resources online that kind of helps you walk through that process. So it might be necessary that you get a workers' compensation coverage outside of Ohio if you don't already have one. We actually have a unit that we developed probably about 5 years ago, other states coverage, where we work with an insurance company to help be able to provide that, because we have so many employers that have operations outside of Ohio and they think they're covered, and for some instances they are, but we do have an other states coverage unit that can help you with that. But also you can get it on the private market. It's just is one option that you have. So we recommend that you secure that other states coverage, whether it's through us or with a state fund outside of Ohio or with a private insurance company, if an employee is hired to work in that other state. So if your headquarters is here, but they're not hired to work here in Ohio, you would definitely want to get coverage in that state. If you have Ohio-based employers working in another jurisdiction for an extended period of time, so maybe they're there for 6 months versus just 90 days, that's something that you may want to consider and check with that other states, even if it's temporary. Like I said, Kentucky, they require that you have coverage as soon as you cross that bridge. So they have their own laws. You want to make sure that you're compliant with other states' laws, not in addition to ours. Again, we can't control necessarily where an employee files a claim. We can educate them to file it in Ohio, but that doesn't prevent them from filing in other states. We have a temporary classification that's available. Well, it's permanent classification 8871, and 9444 is the public version for public employers of the clerical telecommuter classification. So what's different is that during this stay-at-home order that started in mid-March, that you're allowed to assign this code to any employee that works there for payroll reporting purposes. So if it's something that you need to have added to your policy, you can call the number there, or 1-800 number, or send an email to that email address. You can always send it to me as well, and I'd be happy to pass that along. But this rate is typically cheaper than your operating manual. If you have a clerical manual already assigned, you'll want to just report it under the regular clerical, which is 8810, because that's a little bit cheaper than the telecommuting clerical. So that's a change that we made too in midst of this whole pandemic. And then I also, just in closing, I think just wanted to talk a little bit about the Division of Safety and Hygiene. I mentioned them earlier. They're a great resource to employers. They are funded out of employer premiums, so you don't pay anything additional for any of their services. But they have consultants. I mentioned those before. Right now, they're doing virtual consulting. Hopefully, sometime soon, we can all get out there and do on-site consultation. They specialize in general safety. They have ergonomists that our ergonomists have been a little bit busy with the virtual consulting because they help with workstation design. So, making sure that you have your monitor in the right place and you're not having any issues, neck injuries, that your monitors are placed appropriately, and your keyboard and chair height and all of that is appropriate. So they do that in factory settings as well, but they're getting a lot of work right now with office ergonomics. They can do safety management assessment and enhancement, so they can help with, again, looking at your processes, be virtual at this point. Safety team development and enhancement. A lot of times safety teams get a little stale and they need jumpstart, so they can give some recommendations or help employers develop that safety team, make recommendations on protocols, on who should be on it, et cetera. So they do a lot of work with employers on that. We have online training for people at all levels. Back before the pandemic, we had online or in-person classes. Those are suspended, obviously, right now because of the pandemic, and we'll get back to that, as soon as safe to do that, the online. But these are classes that anybody within your organization can take. There's a catalog out there. Again, I'd be happy to send you some of these resources if you want them, but they have anything from very specific classes to lockout tagout to more general classes on like how to develop that safety team. They offer about 100 different classes throughout the region. Right now, again, they're all online, but they're still available, and they're available to any of your employees. They just need to have your policy number to sign up for the classes. And this includes self-insured employers as well. They're entitled to, they do pay an assessment to us, self-insured. So they're entitled to any of these resources through our Division of Safety and Hygiene. We have a very extensive video library that can help supplement some of the training you might already do. And it's all free. So you can just reserve the videos. The only expense for the videos, the return postage, to send it back to us, that we get it back, and you can use that to enhance your training or for your own knowledge as well. They try to stay up on the state-of-the-art videos that are out there in the safety field. So there's information on our website. So with that, I covered a lot of information. I tried to pick things that I thought would be relevant to, obviously I wanted to share the great news about the $5 billion back that's coming to the employers, but also wanted to share a lot of the topics that I am hearing through my consultation with employers that might be a benefit to you or stir some juices in your head and get to thinking about questions that you never thought of before. But with that, I think I will open it up to questions. I'm not sure how we will share, if you want to unmute or if there's some questions that are coming in on the chat.
Well, while we're waiting, I have a couple questions. Kathleen, have safety councils been meeting? Did that go virtual? Because I know there's a requirement for that training to happen.
Yeah, so our safety councils, we have, I think, 83 safety councils throughout the state. There is one in Hamilton, the Greater Hamilton Safety Council. Most of them are meeting virtually. BWC sponsors that program, and there's a rebate that an employer can get by attending 10 safety meetings through the normal process. But right now, with us rebating all the money, we can't, we take that out, the rebates out of that net rebate that we give. But just from a safety standpoint, right now, they are all suspending in-person visits just because it's not safe to have those types of meetings. And right now, the rebate is also suspended because we're giving back 100% of your premium, and now we're giving back 372%. But they are great organizations because they really allow employers a network to network with other safety professionals, and they do, especially Hamilton, they do a very good job at providing quality speakers and timely speakers on a variety of different safety.
Thank you. My second question is, the governor has been talking about enforcement of COVID-19 guidelines for mask wearing and that type of thing. And he's mentioned several times that he is going to use BWC to be the enforcing agent. Can you give us shed some light on that, or?
Sure. This is also something that is brand new. Our Division of Safety and Hygiene and our fraud department are going to partner up. Our supervisors have already started that initiative, and then their staff will be conducting them here next week. We have already started them in Butler County as well. And where it becomes relevant for BWC is that we obviously are concerned about the safety of employees that are working, and face masks, again, are what is going to prevent the spread. One of the best tools, yes, not the only thing, to prevent the spread. So the governor has tapped us. This is somewhat new territory for us because we've never done anything like this, but the governor asked us to step up and be part of a team that is just recently developed. And they started this past weekend to do the enforcements where they're getting complaints. And they have started in Butler County.
So they're going after, are they focusing then on complaints first, where they're hearing that people are not adhering to the guidelines? Yeah,
I think right now, with, like I said, we just started this weekend. I think they will go more towards random enforcement. They're making sure that the signage is in place that indicates the mask required, and then making sure that they are, complying. They will enter and make sure that they are compliant.
If they're working with local health departments or on that, or?
They are working with the local health departments with that as well.
The reason I ask is I know as of last week, our local health department didn't really know much about it. So I guess it's brand new.
It is brand new. In fact, that's why they're starting with the supervision to kind of go out there and start the process, and then they'll be rolling out to their field staff to be able to conduct those inspections. Certainly, it's not our ideal role to be the mask police, but it is something I think that falls within the realm of what we do because we're concerned about the safety of the employees working there, primarily the employees working there, but customers. And it's just retail business establishments that are affected by that, just retail business establishments.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What are the qualifications for the people who are out of state for them to be hired and for them to work?
So people that live out of state, that are working in the state, is that the question?
Yes.
So if an employee lives out of state and is working in Ohio, then they're covered under Ohio workers' compensation, just because that's where the work is performed. Where the issue becomes a little bit gray is when people are crossing the borders regularly as part of what they do. You think of a plumbing company that might have clients in Indiana, might have clients in Kentucky. And certainly it's different with each state. As I mentioned, Kentucky is a state that requires almost immediate coverage. And I know that they do have some enforcement that their Department of Insurance is the state agency that monitors that. They don't have a Bureau of Workers' Compensation state-run agency like we do, but each state has their own Department of Insurance or some department that is responsible for workers' compensation. I had a client that they own dump trucks, and their dump site was actually in Kentucky, and they were stopped at the entrance of the dump site because they wanted to see their valid, because they saw the Ohio plates and they wanted to see the valid Kentucky workers' compensation insurance, and they didn't. They tried to provide their Ohio, and each state's different too with their fines and what the regulations are. But I would be happy if you wanted to send me an email. I'd be happy to point you in the direction on our website. We have a lot of good information, on our website. Again, Indiana tends to be very friendly with Ohio employers as long as they're considered temporary. Now, if you had an employee that just worked in Indiana, that's when you would want to consider Indiana coverage. But if long as you consider them temporarily or just kind of going there for clients, what have you, then Ohio coverage is all you would need. But it is very state specific and can get very complicated for an employer.
Kathleen, I have another question. If an employee, let's say is in the trades and they are regularly working out of state, even though they're based out of Ohio, how do they know that they're covered? I mean, if something were to happen to them and they found that their employer didn't do the right thing, do they fall through the cracks? Is there some backup plan, or how does that work?
In Ohio, and I think most states are similar, but definitely in Ohio, the claim is covered at 100% for that injured worker, regardless of the compliance of the employer. So if the employer is non-compliant, we will go and try to collect the back premium and take care of that from a compliance standpoint. But the claim itself would be covered. So the employees should always feel assured that if they had a claim, if they were injured in the course of them rising out of employment, that their claim would be covered. Now, if they do also work in other states, there might be some question of which state has jurisdiction over that particular claim. So that might be adjudicated. But again, I think most states are set up with similar statutes that the claim would be covered regardless. Great question.
I don't see any other questions, and we don't have any online today. So anybody else have anything for Kathleen? There's a lot of good information today. I think a lot of employers can definitely benefit from all of this and contacting you if they have any questions. We definitely refer you and have information for businesses. If you have anything that you would like to share with us on a regular basis, Kathleen, like we can put that out in our e-newsletter also.
Yeah,
so,
I can share stuff with you and as things change, and if there's ever a topic that requires a deeper dive, I'd be happy to give a full presentation or maybe even just a BWC update at the beginning of one of your meetings. Would love to stay connected with you guys. And I think the most important thing from the employer standpoint is to know that you have somebody to call, that you can ask questions, because the 1-800 number is listed there. I prefer you to call me directly because I don't think you want to get into the phone tree of the Bureau of Workers' Compensation. Use me as a resource, and I'm happy to help you or point you in the right direction.
Well,
I just want to say, Kathleen, I think this has been great information. I think that one of the things that employers and employees don't understand is that BWC in the state of Ohio is a real resource and a partner. I moved from another state, so that's not the case in every state. You guys can be a real partner to business. And I guess our best closing remark here, in addition to thank you, is the check is in the mail. So look for it.
Yes, it is.
Well, that's awesome. If there's anything else you want to share with us, let us know. We can get it out to everyone. So our next coffee and conversation will be Tuesday, December 1st at 9 a.m. So we look forward to seeing everybody back here again. So have a good week. We will see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you all.